For thousands of years, the driving force and main objective in art was mimesis, the imaginative imitation and representation of the real world. Mimesis resulted in true masterpieces, from El Greco to Bernini, Jacques-Louis David to William Bouguereau, and then there was abstract art. Bouguereau's Virgin of the Angels and Kazimir Malevich's infamous Black Square have just 34 years of art history between them. The one is arguably at the peak of mimesis. The latter is an abomination for many, a source of contention in the public opinion, and a cause of constant controversy. If mimesis was a model for beauty and to identify what was good in art, what model does abstract art offer? Is it a case of the emperor's clothes, the downfall of true art, or was it a liberation of mimesis and academicism, opening new doors for new experiences of beauty and art? When did abstract art start, and how? Why did it start? Who invented it, and if possible, how can we understand it? As a result, I am delighted to welcome you for our first video of the Abstract Art Explained series. What is abstract art? Abstract art consists of all art with a non-representational visual language. Abstract art does not imitate reality, a starting point that is both controversial and yet very exciting. But in fact, before there was total abstraction, the starting point was reality. Abstract art emerged between 1905 and 1915 with the Avant-Garde movement of modern art. Artists were discovering new ways to represent reality in a non-naturalistic manner. The Impressionists and Post-Impressionists moved away from mimesis and academicism by approaching our perception of reality as an interplay of light and color. Inspired by Post-Impressionism and color theory, the Fauvists started to use complementary, bold and non-naturalistic colors. The Futurists were inspired by new media, acceleration and innovation, introducing a new visual language for a new era. The Surrealists were more interested in the visual language of dreams than in reality, resulting in more representational works by the likes of Salvador Dali or René Magritte, but also more abstract surrealist works by Juan Miró or some pictures by Max Ernst. The German Expressionists abstracted forms, lines and shapes of reality to increase the expressive character of the picture. Cubist masters reduced those lines to geometrical forms in the form of portrait, landscapes and still life, distorting the subject, fragmenting reality and abstracting the picture. This ongoing avant-garde tendency towards abstraction resulted inevitably in pure abstraction. Think of Piet Mondrian, who first painted trees and continued to abstract them, ending up with only horizontal and vertical lines and flat color planes. A model replacing mimesis and representing the world in a universal and mathematical structure. Others did not arrive at abstraction by abstracting reality, but were inspired by spiritual avocations, resulting in non-representational art. For instance, Kazimir Malevich founded suprematism in 1913 as he was convinced of the supremacy of pure artistic feeling, resulting in a geometric abstract visual language, followed by constructivism with Vladimir Tatlin or Lisitsky, who believed art should directly reflect the new industrial modern world. And there was a tendency towards abstraction with Dada as well, who aimed to destroy the traditional values of art. So who was the first abstract artist? Generally speaking, Vasily Kandinsky was regarded as the first abstract artist. His painting, Composition 5 from 1911, was seen as the first abstract painting for a very long time. This was the result of a letter correspondence from 1935 in which the artist himself stated his work was the very first abstract picture in the world. But at a similar moment in time, artists such as František Kupka or Robert Delaunay and his Orphism were also producing pure abstract artworks around 1911-1912. And prior to Vasily Kandinsky or Orphism, 5 years before these very well-known names produced abstract art, there was a Swedish female artist named Hilma af Klint, painting abstract pictures inspired by the occult. But when we track even further back in time, we encounter even representational artists who painted abstract pictures. For instance, another artist who was occupied with the occult was Gustave Moreau, During the second half of the 19th century, his sketches and small-scale works tended via dreams towards abstraction, with some works being pure expressive abstraction avant la lettre. Or, if you go back even further, we also encounter abstract pictures during the first half of the 19th century, with Joseph Mallord William Turner. Turner was able to depict the sky or a landscape with strong brushstrokes tending towards abstraction during Romanticism. With some pictures, due to the absence of a clear horizon or a subject in the picture, his paintings suddenly became completely abstract. But of course, Turner did not intend his abstract pictures in the same way as Kandinsky did. However, with Moreau, the distinction in the intention starts to dissolve ever so slightly, up to Klint's occult paintings, arriving at Kandinsky, Kupka and Delaunay, followed by an array of avant-garde artists, with abstract art as we know it today. The truth is, abstraction simply has always been around. Think of non-representational patterns on textile or decorative objects, or symbols and signs in architecture. So instead of inventing abstraction, it was about discovering its potential in art and especially in painting. The more interesting question is, however, why it was discovered so convincingly in just a decade of art history. We have encompassed this tendency towards abstraction with the avant-garde modern art movements. But why was there this Copernican revolution in art, after art history had been developing so gradually over the centuries? At the start of the 20th century, there were numerous catalysts accelerating this tendency towards abstract art. Think of the arrival of new imaging technologies, of photography and film, replacing painting's monopoly for mimesis. The world was changing rapidly due to the new industrial world, and it came along with a new way of thinking. A new zeitgeist accompanied with new ideals. The era of modernism is marked by innovation, experiment, and an almost dogmatic belief in reason and progress, pushing the artist to discover new forms of art, innovating their style, medium, and subject matter, freeing themselves from academic conventions, abolishing tradition for the new in their quest for modern art in a modern world. Hereby there is also a very powerful shift concerning the subject matter of modern art. The impelling force of modern art was often social or political. Think of the futurists or the Russian constructivists. An ideological agenda of progress with often utopian or idealistic vision of modern life became one of the critical elements for modern art. Further, there was an immense interest in certain scientific or psychological discoveries. Think of color theory, but also the impact of Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis and dream studies on art movements, such as surrealism, resulting in absurd associations and new interest in the subconscious. But even more, abstraction was always lurking around the corner. Abstract art is, in fact, about the artist's interest in the formal qualities of painting, or fascination and adoration for the intensity of the color, the sensual character of the brushstroke of the artist, leaving a delicate texture on top of the canvas, the overall composition, blocking shapes and forms, creating space, patterns, guiding the eye and mind of the viewer with the line of the painting. These elements have always been around in art, and artists have always adored these things, often even more than the commissioned or expected subject matter. And if you think about it, many beautiful things in life are abstract. The direct and strong impact of music, the harmonic beauty of symmetry in urban planning, or the use of geometrical shapes in architecture. Then why shouldn't it be possible for art and painting to embrace abstraction as many artists and art enthusiasts have done since the first half of the 20th century up to this very day? Why should art require figures if music does not require words? Why should shapes on a canvas have to be representational in order to be beautiful or harmonic? What is the difference between Turner painting a pumpkin in a landscape to make the composition and color palette work, compared to Barnett Newman's sip at the perfect place to make his picture work? In the end, painting has always been about putting the right things in the right places. So approach abstract painting more like you would approach music. Listen to it instead of questioning what it is aiming to depict or should mean. Tremble along with Mark Rothko's vibrating and overlapping planes of color. Experience the notion of infinity in Yaya Kusama's infinity paintings, or feel the intensity of your viewing experience accelerate along the rhythm of Cy Twombly's patterned pictures. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Feel free to watch our video on the 8 emerging abstract painters to watch or collect now. Support us on Patreon and feel free to consider subscribing to stay posted on more contemporary art. Bye.